Well, hello, everybody. And it's Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern, so we must be sitting here in the Transformation Canada webinar room. My name's Dave Carroll. It's great to have you here. Hope you've been enjoying this series of webinars we've been doing over the last 4 weeks. This is number 4. Ironically enough, you start with 1, you go to the 2, then you get your 3. And now we've got our 4. It's good to be able to have you here today. We're going to be talking about rebuilding culture through strategic partnerships. It's been a blast to be able to be doing this I guess all throughout the month of, what's today? June and beyond. And so we're going to be chatting about some of our next steps coming up in the next little bit. Throw out in the chat room where you guys are from. I have Henry's here from Mississauga. Phil is here from Brantford. We have our Montreal component back here. Again, good to have you guys here. Anglicans for Life from Burlington, Ontario. Shout out to the B dot. That's good. Good to have you here. Just throw it out in the chat room. Love to be able to see who's here. And I can just say hello. My name is Dave, part of the leadership team here at Transformation Canada, and one of the pastors and leaders at Freedom House Church in Brantford, Ontario, director of the Kindness Project, which is really just something we invented to be able to go and show God's love in a practical way, which is somewhat of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the marketplace and the pulpit functioning together, and it is going to be really, really good. I want to introduce you to my friend Brian Beattie off the top. Brian's going to come and say hi and tell us a little bit more about Transformation Canada. Brian, how are you? Where are you? Are you there?
Oh, I'm right here, Dave. Hi. I am going to say hi, just like you said. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today for the fourth, as Dave said, fourth of 4 webinars. In fact, if we go back a month ago, we actually did a prayer event too. So over the last month, we've had a number of times to interact with many of you. So we're just really thankful that you have been with us. And I really want to thank our panelists again today that you're going to meet in just a minute. But I want you to know off the top that the panelists that you are meeting and have met over the last month, they're all part of the Transformation Canada leadership team, except for the one young lady you'll meet again today, Dana, who's actually moved on from our world, and she's now in the larger group. It's called Transform Our World, which is the international group that we're part of, Ed Silvoso's network out of San Jose, California. So she works with them, although she still lives here in Toronto. But everyone you've met over the last few weeks are totally connected to Transformation Canada, Transform Our World, and are totally involved in transforming both themselves, their family, their sphere of influence, and beyond. And so that's really what we're all about. How do we bring God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven? And that's really what Transformation Canada is about. It's like, we really believe that Jesus meant he wanted us to do that. And so we're finding just really practical ways to see tangible, holistic transformation that affects business, the arts, education, government, and the church, and all of these coming together. And that's, as Dave said, that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you again for joining us. We are really looking forward to this dialogue with you today.
Awesome. We're going to do a couple of quick polls just to get a feel for who's in the room, who's watching. So the first poll we're going to do, Nikki, is the Who's Here poll. What sector do you work in? So Nikki, you want to throw up the old Who's Here poll. Oh, that's right. So what do you do? I'd love to be able to just hear quickly. I am a pastor in full-time ministry. I work full-time in marketplace ministry, or excuse me, I'm bivocational. I work both in pulpit and marketplace ministry. For the sake of argument, anything that is not a full-time pulpit minister, we're going to be calling marketplace ministry for the sake of this poll. I'm going to give you another 10 seconds, and then we're going to take a look at that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see what the results are. Love to see who's here. Let's play Who's Here. It's everybody's favorite webinar show. Okay, we have nobody who is a pastor in full-time ministry. 56% works full-time in the marketplace, and 44% bivocational. Awesome. Well, we know who we're talking to today, and that was fun playing Who's Here. That's good. We're gonna do one more poll because I'd love to see how many of these 4 webinars that you've taken in. So if you want to throw up that next poll, Nikki, how many of the Rebuilding Canadian Culture webinars have you seen, either live or the replay of it? Have you seen one of them? Have you seen two of them? Have you seen three of them? Or wait for it, have you seen four of them? I'm going to give you another 10 seconds. If you're not sure, just guess. Always round up when you carry the 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, let's see the results. All right. Daddy needs a new pair of. We have 60% of you who have been here through all four, 20%, 3 or 4. Couple of people are here for the first time, and that is awesome. So that means more than half of you guys have been tracking along, which is excellent, because the way that we're going to work today, I'm hoping to have as much interactivity as we can. We're going to have our panelists share a bit about themselves here in a second, and so you get a feel for who they are. But as we're going along, there's the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. That's a place where you can ask your questions that I can read and hopefully work into the conversation. I'm also going to be watching the chat room, so you can be writing comments in there. I'll be taking a look at that. If you do have specific questions, please put that in there, and we will attempt to be able to get those asked. Okay, let me introduce you to who we are going to be talking to. Nikki Straza. I'm going to say hello to Nikki first. She's the leadership, discipleship pastor at Freedom House Church, and actively works with kids in schools, specifically in the area of kindness. Nikki, jump on and say hello. Introduce yourself to the folks if they haven't met you before, and come say hi.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us on our 4th webinar. I'm Nikki Straza, and I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. That's awesome. Nikki is absolutely the best, longtime friend, and she is the real deal right there. Okay, I want to introduce you to Brian Elliott. Brian is the founder and president and CEO of CES, a company specializing in supermarkets in Toronto, and he's also the founder and chairman of Be Me Kids, which is an incredible charity out in New Brunswick, and all around amazing dude. Brian, say hello and just give a shout out about why you're passionate about this idea of collaboration and integration.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I'm a marketplace minister, and I just love the way that bringing church and business together to formulate something like a new church that goes into the world in a very different way, and we'll share more about that later, but that's really what I'm passionate about.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brian. Introduce you to Dirk and Anita Matt. Dirk is the chair for Transformation Canada and a member of the Transform Our World Global Leadership Team. Also a business owner who does incredible stuff with his Kingdom Ecclesia based companies that have impact all around the world. Dirk and Anita, come on and say hello and give a shout out to everybody.
Hi, thanks, Dave. Yes, we're very excited to be on program today, and we'll be talking about how this all takes shape in the GTA in a regional setting, but also talking about how ecclesia and the kingdom presence takes place in industrial settings across the nation and around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Tim Schindel. Tim serves as the National Director for Leading Influence. They provide nonpartisan on-site chaplaincy to Canadian politicians, as well as the founder and dreamer of the Big Give that we're going to hear a little bit more about today, which is an excellent example of the stuff that we're talking about. Tim, say hi from all the way from beautiful Victoria.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Great to be with you today. I think this is webinar number 3 for me that I've been a panelist, so some of you are becoming old friends. Great to be with you. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about the big spend. We leave the big give to another group, but we're going to talk about the big spend a little later on, as well as our work with politicians across Canada.
My apologies, a slip of the tongue. You think I would have said that enough by now. We already have a question in the chat room. D. Mark Griffin is asking if the painting behind Dirk is a group of 7 painting. Is that a group of 7 painting?
It's done by our grandchild Genevieve, who's about 8.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Okay, who is up next? Dana Hanna. Dana is currently the global facilitator for the Ecclesia Accelerator offered through Transform Our World, and has done an incredible amount in her life. She's worked both in Marketplace along with her husband, Michael, as well as in the church. Dana, come and say hi. And we're going to hear a lot more from Dana today about the idea of the accelerator and working together. Dana?
Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. Collaboration's so important. We can't have unity without diversity, and we need each other. But the cool thing is we really can transform this world and cities and nations working together. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. John Bootsma. John has provided pastoral leadership both locally and nationally within Catch the Fire family of churches for more than 25 years and is an incredible guy. And if you've been following along with our seminars, John is the current record holder for most different locations participated from. So John, where are you today? And give a shout out today.
Yeah, well, today I actually happen to be south of the border down in Raleigh, North Carolina, but it's great to be with you because I'm born, bred, buttered Canadian. I love you guys and I love Canada, and I want to see the kingdom of heaven manifest, not just in the hearts and lives of men and women across the nation, but in our communities and our cities and ultimately our nation. And so whether we work in Marketplace, whether we work in local church, we're sons and daughters, and I want to see Jesus exalted in Canada.
Amazing, amazing. All right, Brian, I'm going to come back to you to be able to set up what we're talking about today. If you haven't met him before, Brian Beatty is the National Director of Transformation Canada, as well as the lead pastor of Freedom House Church in Brantford, Ontario. And Brian, this has been a really great 4 weeks, and we sort of wrap it up today in really talking about some practical steps. Brian, what are we going to be looking at specifically today?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this webinar specifically because it takes a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the stories, which are really important. We've all got stories of how God's taken our lives and changed them and then helped us change what we do. But the dialogue about how we actually bring transformation into cities and regions, it doesn't happen without finding people of like mind and actually getting together and working. And so we talk all the time, and you've heard us say this for 4 weeks now, about the significance of integration. So bringing the spheres together. If I was with Dirk Madden, I don't know where he is on your screen, but for me, he's right there. And if I could, I would hand Dirk and I would have a coin, and I would hand him a coin. Where are you, Dirk? There you are. We would have a coin, and on one side of the coin is the pulpit ministry, the pulpit ministers. And on the other side of the coin are the marketplace ministers, and the importance of the integration of the spheres of influence. So arts, business, education, government, the church coming together, and that's how transformation happens. And there's another coin that has two sides to it, and that's the gospel. The gospel has two sides, and the one side is the gospel that goes to the individual. So when Jesus talked in the Great Commission, he said, that we're to go into all the world. And the way Mark records it is he says, and to preach the gospel to individuals. The way Matthew records it in Matthew 28, he says, and disciple nations. So there's a calling on the church, the ecclesia, to disciple both individuals and disciple nations. And so that means there's people that need to be reclaimed. Jesus redeemed everything. There's people that need to be reclaimed, but there's systems, there's ways that we do things in the world that also the kingdom needs to be brought to it, and they need to be reclaimed as well. And so these things have to happen together. And so, man, I'm really excited about having this dialogue with my friends, because I know their stories and what they've already done. And so you're going to be blessed by it. So we're going to talk today about how to build partnerships intentionally to see transformation come in our communities.
All right. Well, let's jump in. So really the banner questions today are, is the integration and collaboration of the church and the marketplace really all that important? And number two, if so, where do we start? So let's start with the question one more time with a more direct spin. Is the integration of the church in the marketplace really that important? How important is it? John, I'm going to come to you first. Been a pastor involved in both churches that you've been in and overseeing quite a number of network of churches over the years. Is it really that important to be able to see the church and the marketplace function together?
I believe, Dave, that it's absolutely crucial. If we do not see a collaboration, what we're essentially doing is sidelining the vast majority of believers in Christ. You know, we're taking 98+% of people and saying, you guys really aren't that essential, because if you were a first-class believer, if you're really serving the Lord, you come work for the church. And the reality is that the commission of the Lord is to go into all the world, not to say, everybody come ye into the church. Now, it doesn't negate the role of the church. It just acknowledges that we've got so many people that really have individual destinies that when they link it together, it's like spiritual multiplication or addition is 2 + 2 = 5 in the kingdom. And when we work together, I believe we're actually going to see a fulfillment, or at least a great chunk moving forward in the fulfillment of the verses that were just quoted, Matthew 28 and so on. And so we need every single believer on board. We need to see every voice recognized. We need to see the dignity restored to every person, regardless of where they work, so that they can manifest God's kingdom, God's presence, his righteousness, peace, and joy wherever we are. So non-negotiable, it has to happen.
Tim, let me come to you. Same question. Is it really that important? You spent a good chunk of your life in church pastoral ministry, and then the last number of years specifically working in marketplace in the political realm, in caring for people, essentially pastorally, but outside of the church walls. Is it really that important?
It's absolutely crucial, as John says, and I just saw a comment fly by in the chat room around the idea of synergy. And so as John was speaking, an expression that I heard in the past came to mind, that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Right? And I think one of the things that we need to see, from, and I kind of have this hybrid world where I still kind of reflect back on my pastoral days now that even though I'm doing this marketplace thing, is I see that even ministries are siloed, where, it's kind of like, well, this is secular, and this is, this is parachurch, and this is church, and we're all siloed in our different places. And if we can break down those walls and find ways to come together, this synergy and the possibilities that come out of that for kingdom impact are just huge in my mind.
Brian Elliott, come in your direction. I remember the first time that a light went on inside my mind as someone who grew up in the church. And I remember there used to be, I don't know whether it still exists, but it used to be called the Shepherd's Guide. And it was the list of all the Jesus businesses in the region. And if you were a Christian and you had a whatever shop, you'd put it in there. And then the idea was all the Jesus people would go and purchase their lollipops and penny whistles from other Christians. And I started meeting different business owners, and they said, I can't take it because all I get is people going on mission trips asking me for money instead of valuing me and and releasing me. Brian, there's always been a bit of a tension, but how important is it between the marketplace and the church to be able to figure this out, to be able to function together?
I think it has even to do with the relevancy of the church, that if the church is recognizing labor as worship, and that every believer goes into the marketplace as a marketplace minister, you're actually sending the church into where the unsaved are. And on top of that, you're actually meeting the needs of society. You're creating solutions to issues out in the world. You're leveraging the entire congregation for 24/7. So you're activating everyone rather than coming to church to learn. And then when you start to activate the business as an ecclesia, you turn it into a praying business, and then the integration with the church as well can be very special. And there's just so much back and forth and synergy between them. I can't imagine it, as John said, doing them separately.
Matt, let me ask you guys this same question. I know it's a bit of a broad stroke setup here, but I know you guys have spent your life inside churches and on church boards and ministry teams, as well as in very active hands-on business. And when I got to start to know you guys and started hearing the stories about not just how you were doing business and solving problems, but how you were essentially, again, functioning almost pastorally to these different people who you were working together with the business. It was so inspiring to me and enlightening. Is this important, the integration and the collaboration of marketplace and church?
You want to say something?
Yes, the church is a place where you learn about the kingdom, and you are equipped and strengthened and encouraged to go out into the areas where you are working. And then you bring that strength and knowledge and also the backing, the prayer of people for you as you try to transform the area where you are working or called to exercise your giftings and talents.
Yes, and the ecclesia has two forms. One is an assembled form, like we are assembled here as an ecclesia with everyone that's participating. But then there's also a fluid aspect of the ecclesia and the kingdom. And there's absolutely no divide between the sacred and secular. When I talk on the phone, whether it's to Brian Elliott about a business situation, or Brian Beatty about a movement or a transformation situation, we are ecclesia with one another in our dialogue. So every time one or two of us enters into a dialogue, whether it's with our family, with people on the street, or in our business, or with church pastor leaders, we are an expression of the ecclesia. So it has a fluid aspect that has both a geographical impact, but also a transcendental impact across the relationships we have in business and even across the country. So the power of this ecclesia dialogue is there's no limit to it because it's driven by the Holy Spirit and there's no divide.
There's a question in the chat room. It's half statement, half question. Nikki, I'll come your direction on this one. Says, I think the void between marketplace and church in part comes from the thinking that there are secular quote unquote activities, which is exactly what Dirk was just talking about. If I'm working, bowling, politics, etc. Patricia, excellent shout out to bowling, by the way, very good. But Christ is in me, and if I die, but we are raised. Is there a need to educate at the congregation level that there is no secular in Christ, that it's all his stuff? Nikki, how about shoot that your direction?
I absolutely think that is one of the roles. And actually, I think that is one of the roles that we have as Transformation Canada and those who really care about transformation in Canada. And I appreciated in a previous webinar, Brian actually making the statement that, you know, as church leaders, we've actually made that mistake in history, you know, of making the church about the priest or the papal or the you know, the schooled ones versus the church being we, the church, we, the priesthood of all believers. And so we have some repenting and some fixing to do as pastors to reclaim how Jesus actually set it up, that we, the priesthood of all believers, are to go. And so part of it is these dialogues that actually have a conversation about the things that need to change, where we've made our mistakes and where we see Holy Spirit course correcting in our journey as the church through history to becoming that spotless bride that is pure and fully able to reach the world for complete transformation. And I believe that that is the journey we're on.
Dana, I want to give you a chance to speak to the same thing, because you've had experience in a lot of different areas, not just two, in between marketplace and church ministry, and also what some might traditionally call parachurch ministry stuff. So you've had a really neat broad spectrum and come from a really neat perspective on it. How do you see, or where do you see the importance of this collaboration and understanding of needing each other?
Well, I think that's a great question, because I was just thinking about how much, there's so much that you long for as a business person that is available in the church. There's so much that you long for as a pastor that business people and the marketplace have to offer. And I was just reflecting on how incredibly freeing and incredible it was as a business person to be released and blessed and backed by pastors and a church family. And it's so essential. You know, we talk in Ecclesia about how, you know, Paul, like, they were launched out in their businesses, and it was when the marketplace was activated that they were able to reach the ends of the earth. But it was the need for that fellowship, and that gave a great foundation for that to be possible. So I think a lot of the things we're praying and asking for are in each other. I've even seen it a lot in this course, facilitating the global course, working with people in government and education and just marketplace, every area, you know, church, and how beautiful it is when they come together, and the crazy kind of testimonies from very individual, personal heart testimonies to huge global things and incredible changes in government. So I just, there's so much richness in what we have together.
We're gonna start to turn the corner to where do we start, because I think for many, concepts are great, and we've had an incredible amount of discussion. I even had Bob Lucas in the chat room was talking about how there's been a number of been here for 4 sessions and wants to be able to know what the next steps are. Well, Bob, you hang tight, buddy, because we're going to get to some good next steps at the end of this. But I want to be able to turn the corner to steps, to real honest. All right, now what do I actually do? So I'm going to come back to our different panelists and talk about how you took not just high-level steps, but what were your first steps when you started to be able to get this? Like, what were the active steps? Brian Beatty, I'm going to come your direction. There's a fella in the chat room today, and he's watched quite a number of these. His name is Phil Morace. So he's a lovely guy. He's a part of our church at Freedom House, has a company that does unique designs of large buildings like airports and ballparks and all kinds of different things. And he also serves and welcomes people at the church, right? Like, he's like, in his secret life, he's a very influential guy designing airports, but he's also serving at the church. And I watch you guys, Brian, you pray for Phil and his business and declare prosperity and these kind of things, and talk about how to pastor. And I watch Phil encourage in the house of God. And Phil, maybe you could even throw in the chat room how that neat back and forth works even on a local church level. But Brian, talk about the relationship between pastor and those who are in the marketplace and desiring to see transformation in the marketplace. You're muted, so you hit that button and then we'll hear you.
Yeah, I think Nikki and I hit the button at the same time. I unmuted and she muted me again. All good. This is really important, and it really, so I want to speak to those that need biblical understanding for this, because that was really important for me. So as a Christian, I think we want to live biblically. I think that's true, and I think pastors especially, so pastors that are on here or people that need to encourage their pastors, we're all going to want to know that this is a biblical thing. So I want to set up 2 things and then directly answer your question. So I think it's important for us to understand what Jesus said when he said, "I'll build my church." He wasn't talking of building a physical location. He could have chosen a number of things. He could have said, "I'm going to build a synagogue or a temple," which was really religious, but he didn't do that at all. He actually picked a secular word that everyone, when he said it, would have understood. He's not building a building, he's building people. He's actually creating, and the phrase that I use a lot when I talk is like, it's like Jesus is building his own city council. He's taking people from where they are, and he's infusing them with kingdom DNA, with transformational DNA, and he's saying, now go into places of your passion, go into the places of your calling, and wherever you go, you are the church. So there is the time that we gather. There, John, you talked about this earlier about there is a gathering, but really the ecclesia gathers so they can be sent really well, right? And the second word that I want to define here, because it's something Anita talked about, is that she said that we're called, when we go to church, we're getting equipped. And so Ephesians 4 talks about that the purpose of the leadership gifts apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. The purpose of those gifts are to equip the saints, which is every Christian, right? Every Christian is a saint, and they're to be equipped. They're to be prepared for ministry, to be prepared for works of service, again, in the place of the passion and calling. So, and that word, just, I want to clarify one more thing before I answer the Phil question. The word apostle there that everyone trips over, it was another secular word. It wasn't like we were trying to get freaky and religious. It was a secular word that really, the best way we could define that today is like an admiral or even a fleet admiral. So he's the guy that drives the big ship. And the fleet admiral is the guy that oversees a fleet of ships. And so when they're taking, let's go back to the first century, when they're taking the culture of Rome to another place that they're creating like Rome, the apostle would be the guy that's in charge of taking all the stuff that is going there to build the new cities that are going to look just like Rome. And he's the admiral, he's the fleet admiral. And so apostles are like the admirals, and prophets are those that speak the word of the Lord and get between. So if we can take the religious wording into this, because they were never religious words in the first place, it'll really help us understand. So now let's get to the Phil question. Phil is an incredible leader, and I see Phil as a admiral in the fleet in the army that God has in the city. And so if I can come alongside Phil and go, this is how you can make your business an ecclesia. This is how you can infuse the kingdom into those that you work with, or even your customers. So wherever you go, you bring the kingdom. So that's really the purpose. And so it's Jesus saying he's going to build people, and the Apostle Paul saying, here's what you do as a pastor, or here's what you do as a leader. You infuse kingdom into people and say, whether you're going to business, education, government, whether you're designing buildings, you are called to bring my culture to where you go. And so Phil does that like a great opportunity. So I want to come alongside Phil and go, I want your business to prosper. I want you to prosper. So what you're doing shows off the culture of the kingdom and what you're passionate about. And so that's really what it is, finding people's passions where they live and go, how do I infuse kingdom values, kingdom character into both of us, so wherever we go, people see Jesus in and through us.
Phil in the chat room wrote, it's so powerful to know that I have the support of my pastors, knowing that they're actively praying for me and my business provides fuel beyond their understanding, which is so neat. Brian Elliott, let me come your direction. When you began to get this idea of the importance, how did you start? How did you take your first steps with your company?
Well, interestingly, back in about 2005, I understood the power of prayer. So actually I hired an intercessor, and I didn't pray. This intercessor prayed, and that continued for about 10 years. And Lord introduced me to Eastgate House of Prayer in 2015. And when we engaged with them, then the lead pastor there and myself, we started really praying together. And then that really activated, it turned me from a business person into an intercessor first, and really started to change everything. And then it kind of bled into other intercessors praying for the business, that Eastgate covering me on an ongoing basis with prayer calls throughout the week. And then even in 2017, they actually commissioned me into the marketplace. All the elders laid hands on me, commissioned me, and sent me out. And then from there, everything's just been snowballing from that point.
You must have made an intercessor's dream come true. I think every intercessor's like, maybe one day I could get paid to pray. Like you were the apostle on that one, man. That is incredible. John Bootsma, with the Catch the Fire movement, like the presence of God is such an important thing, right? In your experience in getting started with this collaboration, what role does the presence of God play when you're encouraging others in the marketplace and vice versa?
Well, I think it's huge, because first of all, we need to realize that the presence of God, first of all, God is not a respecter of persons biblically. Therefore, if he's not a respecter of persons, he's not just found inside the four walls of a church and inside of a church building. He actually inhabits the praises of his people. So we don't just praise him in a local church. We can praise him in the marketplace. Have you ever given thanks when you've got that contract? You begin to give God thanks. God is attracted to that place of thanksgiving, the place of praise, the place of gratitude, the place of seeking first his kingdom in your business dealings and your governmental decisions, you know, in the creative ideas that you need for arts and entertainment, whatever the reality is. And so we would encourage people to take this place of saying, hey, the transformation you yourself have experienced and encountered personally, take that with you wherever you go, because the presence of Christ in you, the hope of glory, will actually bring transformation to the structures or the systems that you're involved in. And so really it needs to be ongoing. You know, if we're selfish, we keep it to ourselves. The whole mandate, even in our church in Toronto, prior to that whole outpouring, as well as throughout it, was that we may walk in God's love and give it away. And so since the majority of people don't come to the church Monday to Friday, they're actually involved in business, in whatever their tasks are. They give it away where they are. They bring transformation to structures and to people. And so that's the way to go about doing it. And then I believe the Lord just adds to it through the little much principle. Faithful with little, he'll give you more and pour out more upon you.
So I have a couple of similar questions that I'm gonna throw out here on the way through, and I'll throw this open to whoever is anxious to answer. Mark Griffin wrote, how do we serve those churches, ministries, and pastors who aren't interested in partnership, who are doing their own thing? And a similarly flavored, shall we say, question in the Q&A from David Lau. We touched on educating and equipping people in the church for kingdom work in the marketplace, yet many church leaders still see releasing church members as drawing people away from the church. How is this ever going to change? All right, so these are very similar feels to a problem that many have, a roadblock that many have hit in a couple different ways. Who's giddy to be able to tackle this one? Which one of our lucky chat roomers? I see a John Bootsma wave. All right, John.
Yeah, I'll tackle it. And if I can quote John Wimber, first of all. You know, John Wimber was really a forerunner in his time and in his day. He's with the Lord now. He was very involved. Actually, he was one of the Righteous Brothers way back when, and then started actually didn't start it, but he was right there near the beginning with the Vineyard movement. But he coined this phrase. He said, there's really three kinds of churches, and it's all alliteration. He said, first of all, there's fantasy church. And he says, it's like playing basketball without a ball or without a hoop. So we're not sure what they're doing, but they call themselves church. They're not that, in our circles, I don't think there's that many. Then he says, you've got factory churches. The factory church exists for the benefit of the factory owner, which means the whole concept is, I'm the pastor, I'm the holy man or woman of God. You're here to help serve the vision that I carry. And therefore, God has given you your place in the marketplace or whatever, so that you can make money, so that you can help facilitate the vision. And I think that's kind of where we're seeing some of these questions geared towards, because there's a lot of these that are taking place. And unfortunately, I think, you know the tree by its fruit. A lot of those kinds of factory churches aren't being fruitful years and decades on. And then the last kind of church is a family church, where the recognition is that from a pastoral leadership perspective, if we can start to recognize the call of God and the destiny on individuals, collaborate with them, recognize that as we see what God has put in them, the vision, we work with them. And in many cases, it's going to be out there in the marketplace and in the community in which you live. Work with them, facilitate some of your resources, so that even 60% or more is for their, is for the sake of their destiny. But we look as churches to say, part of what we're doing is people development. Therefore, as you even facilitate your skill set, let me help you with your skill set. Maybe you can groom your passion within the realm of the local church, but we also want to work to see you fulfill and actually fulfill the mandate, the calling of your own personal destiny, and work with you as the collaboration of the church, of even networking and putting people together. So I think we need to shift from a factory and fantasy model of church to a family church where we recognize that the majority of it is we want to see the kingdom of God come into our communities and in our cities. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it's great. Mr. Schindel, I want to come your direction because there's a number of different things that you're involved in that both dabble in this vein, but I also want you to share a little bit about the idea in the how do you get started with the big give, or sorry, again, I said it, the big spend. Can you, so share a little bit about your experience with this, because you do have what some might think is a non-traditional ministry, and how do you bless politicians that sometimes churches go, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because it does. and then your heart for the restoration of our economy and these first steps like the big spend.
Sure. Let me talk about the political side first. So, as I mentioned earlier, we provide chaplaincy to politicians across Canada. Today, we are working in 5 provincial legislatures, as well as our national parliament in Ottawa, so six places. In the beginning, it was really, as we were just kind of walking this through, it was really just about how do we care for these people, which is still kind of our primary operating system as we describe it to people. But what we're really doing is establishing ecclesias across the country with government leaders. And we do that in a nonpartisan, non-political way. So we're not playing favorites, with political sides. And so that's always a really interesting kind of dynamic. Church people don't get it. Often church people don't get it, and church leaders don't get it because they think Jesus has a particular political favorite. And so why would you want to be with anybody else? So there's that we deal with. But here's what we found is that you go with the people that God puts in your world who resonate with what's in your heart, right? And so I'll give you an example right now on this Big Spend project that we're doing. So the Big Spend is a economic initiative. Honestly, it came out of something that God said to me and spoke to me about in early May about it's time to think about recovery. And I reached out to some people who are influential people and have been in my life for a long time. When I met them, really, we were just people who liked each other. And by God's grace, He has positioned us in some rather unique places. And so, I took this Big Spend idea, which is on July 25, we're going to invite churches and Canadians to spend on purpose to support a local business or locally owned businesses in their community. So in my mind, this is a no-brainer for local churches. You show up, be a blessing to your local business. And then I pitched it to churches and discovered that they have other priorities. Some have other priorities. And so, we've gone with churches and chambers of commerce and reaching out in different places, but I can't spend my time convincing people who either don't get it, aren't wired to get it, or aren't interested in getting it. I can't spend my life trying to convince them they need to come along with me. I need to run with the people that God puts in my path. And as we do that, we discover that God has given us tremendous influence, and out of that influence comes tremendous kingdom impact across the country, both in the political realm and now, just kind of for fun with this Big Spend project that we're doing.
I put the link to the Big Spend in the chat room if you want to take a look at it. It's a really, really neat initiative. So we have about 7 to 10 minutes left before we're going to begin to wrap up these series, and we've got some neat stuff at the end we want to be able to talk about. Mats, I want to come your direction in the how do people get started? How do people begin this road of truly, genuinely functioning together?
Good question. I just want to reiterate what Tim said. You cannot push a rope. This applies both in the church setting and in the business marketplace setting. If people don't want to hear what you've got to share in terms of a kingdom approach, all you can do is pray for them. So then the question, Dave, is how do we start? So Anita and I have been walking in this journey for a long time. Ed Savoso challenged us, what are you doing in your backyard? It's great to be functioning in your business, but what are you doing in the GTA? So Anita and I prayed about it, and we said, we need to call something together in the GTA. So we intentionally called pastors, business people, ministry people. Can we come together to discern what God wants to do with us collectively in the Greater Toronto Area? And it was a very challenging step to do that. There was no precedent, no protocol, but we did it. And Dana was there in those first meetings. We had maybe 6 to 8 people in the room in a small church basement. And we started to talk about a kingdom presence where we could collaboratively work together. What it really was a point of inception. The call of the ecclesia, where 2 or 3 are gathered together. We started to do that, and we had to drive an hour and a half with Dana and other folks into the center of the city. It was a costly venture. That started 3 years ago. And that group, John Bootsma became part of it, Brian Elliott became part of it, Tim Schindel became part of it, Brian and Dave became part of it, Nikki attended some of these meetings, and those meetings started to develop. We started developing a relationship with each other. We started developing a philosophy of understanding of transformation and kingdom, and we started meeting together in Brian's corporate office. And there were a number of pastors in the group, and that group grew from 6 or 8 people to a database today of 150 people. Now, not everybody attends every meeting. We get anywhere from 16 to 45 people at any one time. We're now meeting in Zoom meetings, and the Lord is knitting it together in an amazing ways where we're not just celebrating what each of us does individually, but what can we do collaboratively in the Greater Toronto Area and beyond. So Anita, you want to share a little bit about the prayer basis of that?
Well, when we started, we were sharing our passions and our heart and the ideas we were getting from the Lord. And as each person shared, if you were in the marketplace, we would have a pastor stop and pray for you. And if you were in a teacher, we would have a politician stop and pray for you, so that we would to enhance the unity and the sense of being together. We've also done prayer walks around ventures that people have received from the Lord, and just call them into being in the city. And we meet regularly, once a month, with committed, mature intercessors to actually pray for the officials of the city and to pray for the ventures that are happening in this group together.
Yeah, so this model can be replicated across the country. And pastors like John Bootsma started bringing members of his congregation, marketplace people, and in those meetings, their spiritual calling in their marketplace setting got activated, envisioned, empowered, and grew dramatically. And so we saw the Lord changing people in the midst of those meetings as they left and went and had a whole new vision of what God was calling them to do in their area of influence and in partnership with others. So it became a multiplication of the kingdom, like someone talked about earlier today. So that's ongoing, and we are hoping to see points of inception where 2 or 3 start, maybe 5 or 6, with intentional partnering with people from different backgrounds in cities across Canada. And some of these ecclesias transcend geography. Like Brian Elliott and I are in business. So our ecclesias are not limited by geography. He works across North America. I work across North America. And I work internationally. So we see this ecclesia multiplication growing wherever we have relationship with people and are doing business. And it's growing dramatically.
And let me say this, that as part of our offering, we work in the church, and as business people, we release finance into the church to build up our local church. But we also release finance into each other's ministries and into what the Lord is doing in the city.
Awesome. I want to give Nikki and Dana a couple minutes as we're getting to run short on time. So same question, about 2 minutes each, just about from your perspective and where you've had influence, how do you begin to be able to collaborate? Dana?
Well, I think anything starts with understanding. Like conversations like this are incredible. And I think when we step into each other's shoes and we say, okay, what are your needs? What are your felt needs? We like to throw that around a lot around here, but it's the truth. Like, if you can say, what do you need? I think that's the beginning place to realize, wow, as a pastor, I actually really need what you have, because I'm having that conversation, and then the business person or whoever can actually say, well, I've learned so much about that specific structure or that specific issue that's troubling you, and this is what I have to offer. And I just find so many business people, like, it is such an incredible thing to, I know we talked about how we don't always love the word apostolic, but I really do think in our modern day, the word apostolic can be equated with entrepreneurial. It's that pioneer, that trailblazer. So many business people are actually what I would consider apostolic, and breaking down those barriers can be such a lonely place. And just the kind of wells that God has put in the pastoral, like, if you start having those conversations, you realize, I didn't even know I needed what I need from you. And it can be so, it is necessary, and it is so strengthening and releasing. I think Philip wrote about how the relationship between Freedom House and him has launched him. And there's something that we can't ignore, you know. God did put the temple and the ecclesia and the marketplace, God knows what he's doing. So if we haven't yet tapped in, we need to tap in, because if you're on this call, you're probably on this call because you want to bring transformation where you are. And this is a necessary part of it.
Okay, Nikki, 2 minutes your direction.
Well, I think I'm very much in the same camp as Dana and so many others here, that it starts with relationship. Because we can't collaborate, we can't integrate, we can't build a bridge if we aren't willing to be associated. And that is a real challenge. And I think we have to circumcise our own hearts and our own attitudes and really deal with the us-them mentality that so often we carry in the church, that says they are and we are. No, whether they're Christians in the marketplace or they're non-Christians in the marketplace, they are loved by God, and God is pursuing them outrageously, and they are deserving of my time, attention, and love and relationship. And obviously I can't be friends to everyone, but God does want to orchestrate relationships that will be an influence builder when that collaboration begins to happen. And those relationships come through serving, saying yes, saying, what do you need, being there for them. And that open door, like I can see in my own journey as well, that when I have been willing to sit on a committee, volunteer in the community, do different things, that willingness to serve opens doors to relationship, which then opens doors to collaboration and trust. And I think those things are so important.
Awesome. Brian, I'm going to bring it over to you to close in just a minute, but before that, we're going to do a couple more quick polls, and then I'm going to share just a little something about next steps, and then we are going to talk a bit about the Ecclesia Accelerators, and Brian's going to bring it home. Nikki, let's put that first poll up here. This one is going to be an easy one. This is an easy one. I mean, none of them were terribly complex, but the complexity of this one is even less. Okay. I can't hear you, but I can't see the poll either. So,
which one are you wanting?
Either one. Letter up. Dealer's choice. They're very similar. Okay, this one is: are you following Transformation Canada on Facebook? Okay, this one's easy. If you don't know, put no. Okay, you got like 5 seconds. 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see. Are you following us on Facebook? The answer is no, 67%. Well, what an incredible opportunity that we provided for you today, because we are going to be doing quite a bit more on Facebook throughout the summer. Hopefully going to be bringing you some neat guests and stories on Facebook all throughout the summer. So if you want to be able to see that, there's going to be more in the Facebook Live department. It's going to be a very Facebook transformational summer. So go to Transformation Canada on Facebook and Follow us, like us. Okay, there's one more. This is almost as easy. Have you subscribed to the Transformation Canada mailing list? Okay, this is a good one. This is a good one. If you don't know, say no. If you've been getting emails from us, you probably have. Okay, I'll give you I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, 3, 2, 1. What do we got? Survey says yes. Survey says yes. Thank you all so much for signing up. And the 11% of you, what in the world is taking you so long? Just go ahead and sign up for that mailing list, and that will keep you, it's probably the best possible way to be able to keep updated on the things that are happening in Transformation Canada. Want to take a second and give you an opportunity to invest in Transformation Canada. Any gift amount helps us contribute to champion the message that it's possible to see our communities and cities and even the nation transformed. Transformation Canada has a unique opportunity to be a unifying voice in our nation for those who have gained a revelation of God's plan to transform cities and disciple the nation. We have a modest budget and function completely on the generous support of those who believe that the gospel is meant to impact every area of society. If you would consider becoming a monthly supporter of Transformation Canada or a one-time gift, your support, big or small, will go an incredible way to be able to help us continue on the work that we're doing through Transformation Canada. I'm going to put the link in the chat room if you desire to be able to do that. Brian, I'm going to turn it back to you to chat about the accelerators and what's coming up next.
Yeah, so I want to thank you again for being part, and thank you for at least half of you, as you said earlier, have been here all for 4 weeks, and we want to be really intentional now about how to move forward with you and with those that you want to be partnering with, and collaborating with. And so one of the great opportunities that you have in front of you right now that we're just going to share with you now is what's called the Ecclesia Accelerator. This is put on by Transform Our World, the mothership from San Jose. It's an incredible, I'm just finishing up the Ecclesia Accelerator myself. Actually, a number of us on the panel here are doing that. And it's a great teaching where you can actually dive into not just the principles, but by the end of it, you're going to be writing your own transformation personal plan of where God's taking you. So that's a great opportunity for you that I really want to encourage you to do. There's the picture right there for you. It'll show you how to get transformed, your family, your sphere of influence, and your world. So it's a great opportunity. Follow that link, and it'll be, hopefully we're putting that up as well. Dana Hanna, who you've already met, she's actually the global grand poobah of the Accelerator students. So you already know her. So how easy is this going to be for you to do that? I want to encourage you, just from those notes there, I want to encourage you that this really does start in your family. So the best place you can start with this, if it's new information or more inspiration to what you want to see happen, it needs to start with your family. So you're being inspired, bring that to your family, and then your sphere of influence. So if you're a pastor, take it to your staff. Start teaching these principles. Look deeper into the principles and find out what you can do with them. If you're a business person, if you're in the marketplace, again, speak to your staff, your partner, those you work with. And there was a number of questions today about, well, what do I do? What if people don't jump onto it? And everyone's not going to jump immediately. Not everyone is going to, but you're going to share your story. You're going to share. I heard these stories about these people that believe that God really is serious about transforming communities. And you're going to share that with the right people, and 2 or 3 or 4 of them are going to go, that's amazing. Well, start there. Start with those people and build an ecclesia of it. Just, Jesus said it only has to be 2 or 3. So you can start with those 2 or 3, find those people and create something where you're integrated with the different spheres and you're collaborating. Find something to do. Find something that's easy to win on and do that. And as we said, the reason we had those last couple of polls, we did it on purpose because we want you to stay connected. We want to stay connected with you. How can we serve you? How can we bless you? How can we help you bring transformation to your family and your community and your sphere of influence? How can we do that? So we've got all kinds of plans for other webinars and other Facebook things, and there's great things happening in the global group. But we want to know how to bless you. So if you can go on Facebook and let us know. If you can go on to our let us know who you are just by joining up. We can chat. My email address is brian@transformation.ca, transformationcanada.ca. Send me an email. Let me know what we can do to stay connected, to make this thing keep moving forward. And let me just say one more thing. And if this was a conference, which originally this was going to be before COVID, if this was a conference, we'd be saying right now, do something in the next 24 hours. So here's what I want to say. Do something in the next 24 hours. Go pray over your city. If you don't think there's anything there, go pray over it. And there's so many people in our network that have prayed over their city and said, you're not an orphan. God loves you and you're God's city. And just make a declaration into the heavenlies and worship over your city. And then start talking about these things you're hearing, as I said, and find people that go, I get what you're talking about. How do we do this together? And we want to be here for you. That's why we exist. We exist to see transformation all across from sea to sea to sea. We believe what it says on the Parliament of Ontario says that God, will have dominion from sea to sea. And so that's where we want to see this going.
Yeah, what he said. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings our time to a close. It's 2 o'clock. We hit our mark right on. This has been an absolute pleasure to be able to be with you this last month. Like I said, please like Transformation Canada on Facebook and pay attention there, because we've got some neat exclusive content that we're going to be generating throughout the summer, and chance to be able to meet some more amazing folks that are seeing God do incredible stuff through their lives. Thank you to the Matts and to Brian Elliott, to John and to Dana, to Nikki, to Brian, to Tim, and all the others that joined us throughout these webinars. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your investment into our nation. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks so much for being a part of it. We will see you on the internet very, very soon. Bye-bye.